That is James Mennie. He is over at the Montreal Gazette. And Jim, I'm not sure, Brian says we have the audio apparently of Mario Risky confronting Pablo Rodriguez today. Let's listen in here for just a second, see what happened.
They can't fire me. I quit. Seems I don't fit in.
Oh, okay. So there you go. Jim, you're right in your headline here. Usually the Quebec Liberals wait until after they lose an election to feud in public. What's going on here?
Exactly, and I gotta tell you, there ain't nobody, and anybody who says they saw this coming is lying. Nobody had this on their bingo card. Clearly, there's inside baseball, and apparently then there's inside the Quebec Liberal Party, because what we're seeing here is Mario Risky, who, as far as I'm concerned, is far more the face and voice of the Quebec Liberal Party than Pablo Rodriguez, essentially being bounced out of the party, out of the caucus. Because she decided, without consulting Pablo Rodriguez, to fire her, or oust her chief of staff, who used to be Pablo Rodriguez's chief of staff, because of what's described in a letter that she sent out, because of a serious fault. Now, La Presse is citing anonymous sources saying that this could have something to do with ethics. This could have something to do with the Director General of Elections. Given that the only election that's been going on was the leadership campaign for the Liberals. Is it about this? We don't know. But, man, we went from, maybe Pablo Rodriguez is going to work out, to this very dark, inky black cloud forming and growing over the Quebec Liberal Party. Remember, Mario Risky, this is not like sour grapes or revenge. Mario Risky supported Rodriguez in his bid for the leadership. So for her to turn around and do this, and for him to react so swiftly, there's nothing good. Nothing looks good about any of this. And until they clear the air, and they're going to have to do it sooner rather than later, they have exchanged one Paul, if you will, which was the whole idea, the Liberals and the accusations, the allegations of corruption for the Quebec Liberal Party, they traded that for now this murky kind of in-house intrigue, and as I say, one of the most visible and, dare I say, the most popular members of the Quebec Liberal caucus is no longer a part of that caucus. And as far as I would venture to say, given she said she's not going to seek re-election, is going to remain an independent for the rest of her term. So I don't know what all those clever, genius people over at the Quebec Liberal Party, in terms of their planning and their organization and their back room. And as I've said rather sarcastically on this show, as far as I'm concerned, the Quebec Liberal, management always seems to figure they're the smartest people in the room. Let's hope they're really smart on this one, because anybody, ranging from the PQ to the CAQ to Quebec Solidaire, and indeed the ever diligent Quebec Conservative Party, can have a field day with this. And quite frankly, unless, I would say we're Tuesday today, so unless this gets settled, unless the air gets cleared by Friday, this is going to be part of the brand. This rift will be part of the brand. And if someone comes clean on it, i.e. Pablo Rodriguez, this is only going to get worse for the party.
Which is interesting, because this stuff typically would stay, buried under the table, under the rug, however you want to phrase it, right? When parties have internal rifts, we don't find out usually till much, much later, unless someone leaves the party altogether. And I understand she'll sit as an independent MNA. You want to take a wild guess here at what happened, Jim? Is this simply a matter of, you can't make a decision like that unilaterally without letting the premier know? What would have happened here?
Well, okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves. He's not premier yet.
I'm sorry.
But the thing is, Aaron, to a certain extent, by asking the question, you've answered it, because this is not Mario Risky's first rodeo. She is a veteran politician. So the question I have to ask, and that I quite frankly, I dare not speculate upon, is what was the nature of this serious fault that Risky decided to act unilaterally as leader of the opposition, not inform Pablo Rodriguez, and indeed, was she not aware in doing so of the sequence of events that she would be creating, and indeed the impression that this was so serious, I have to act on my own, because perhaps I wouldn't get and apparently not get the same amount of support from the leader of the party if I had gone to him. So clearly there is something there, which is why I say they've got to clear the air on this, man. This is not some some inside baseball kind of let's talk about this over a drink when the show's over. This is like for real stuff. This is about the future of the party, such as it is. Remember, we're talking about, now a caucus of all of, I think, 18 people. So, I mean, maybe even less, because I think a few other people have resigned as well. But the bottom line here is we're not talking about some political force, some juggernaut that can shrug off this kind of really negative attention and go on whistling, like nothing's going on. This is going to be every single question Pablo Rodriguez is asked between now and, like I say, whenever he clears the air. Because if he doesn't, this is going to dog him till Election Day. That is a fact. As I say, this is not some obscure backbencher who was perhaps had their nose out of joint because they weren't given a better shadow cabinet position. Mauro Risky, as I say, as far as I'm concerned, is the brand. Mauro Risky, and it doesn't matter, Montreal, the regions, whatever. She was a very hardworking MNA. And for this to happen and to happen this way suggests there are oceans more to the story, Aaron, than we know about. And it's in the interest of the party and certainly the caucus and certainly Pablo Rodriguez that they rip this Band-Aid off as quickly as possible and come clean on what's going on.
All right, let's move to the other story today. We've been talking for the past couple of days, Jim, about the PQ and the Blue Book and Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon, who has sent out Pascal Paradis, I guess, to speak to English media. He's been on CJD twice in the past 5 or 6 days. We're going to apparently get a new chapter every couple of days to explain what, Quebec will look like, the vision of the PQ, if and when the province separates. But then today, this seemed to come out of nowhere. Mélanie Joly commenting, she was, I guess, in the House, had been stopped and asked about what, the PQ had been saying, and actually came out and said, and I don't have the quote here, but she said part of what the PQ has been asking for is closer ties, their words, to the United States if Quebec became an independent country, to which she then said, and again, I'm just paraphrasing here, Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon basically wants to throw Quebec into Donald Trump's arms. What do you make of
that's
this?
The quote. That's the money quote. The leader of the party, I have a quote in front of me. The leader of the party, Québécois, wants to hand Quebec over to Donald Trump, throw it into Donald Trump's arms because he wants to weaken Quebec in the face of an America that is gaining enormous power and wants to impose its own laws around the world. And what gets me in this quote, Aaron, is that, for someone, you could say, well, Mélanie Joly was a member of the Trudeau government. She sounds like she was a member of the Pierre Trudeau government. She's not taking any guff from this Blue Book campaign at all. And I'm pretty sure that Madame Joly did not come out of the blue. I think Ottawa has been keeping their ear to the ground on what Monsieur Saint-Pierre Plamondon has been saying. And if you ever wanted to, how can I put it, just knock the props out from under PSPP, compare him to Donald Trump. Compare him to a collaborator with Donald Trump, which is exactly what Madame Joly did today. What I find interesting, and once again, as always, I apologize in advance, I haven't seen any reaction thus far from the Parti Québécois or from Monsieur Saint-Pierre Plamondon. But the fact is, talk about hitting them where they live, talk about hitting a raw nerve, because right now, if there are economic ills, in fact, most of the problems that are confronting Quebecers economically at the moment can, to a certain extent, be attributed to Donald Trump. So when a federal cabinet minister turns around and essentially says that the leader of the PQ is essentially wants to and that's the quote, hand Quebec over to Donald Trump, you can bet they're loaded for bear. They're not fooling around, and it'll be very interesting to see how the tone of the ongoing Blue Book campaign will change, certainly with French language media as well, now that Ottawa has clearly, very obviously entered the fight, I would even say entered the fight swinging, entered the fight, brandishing a bottle in one hand and a baseball bat in the other. They are not fooling around, and these are what we refer to as fighting words, Aaron. And it'll be interesting to see how the PQ fights back.
Sure. So I'm already imagining, Jim, one of two things will happen, right? The first thing when we heard the provincial Liberals speak out against this was them being accused by PSPP of fear-mongering. They're being told to shut up. And I imagine in this case, here are the feds weighing in, right? What's the typical answer? Stereotypical answer from the PQ will be the feds have no interest or no business weighing into what we're doing. Is that fair?
Yeah, sure, but listen, everyone, even francophones in Quebec are in no. Yes, Quebec nation, Canada is an unofficial foreign country. They realize that our future, Quebec's future is with Canada. That's why the numbers for separation always suck so badly no matter who's running the PQ. But I'll tell you one thing right now. Looking at the headline on the Gazette story that I have in front of me and looking, just thinking about the quote that you and I were talking about, if he didn't have so much on his mind today, I'll bet you Pablo Rodriguez wish he'd said that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, we shall see where this I guess next we'll have to have, as you said, reaction from the PQ. We have not had that yet today.
And usually they're not slow to react. So
yeah.
I don't know if they're just going to, no, as you say, these people are not part of the conversation, as if Canada doesn't exist. But the fact is, the headline is out there, the comment has been made, and it's not just. And don't forget, it does matter what people hear in the rest of Canada about Quebec and the Parti Québécois, and for that sort of to be thrown at the PQ brand by Joly, that these people just want to hand it over to Donald Trump. Trust me. Rightly or wrongly, that's the kind of thing that sticks in the back of your mind.
Yeah, I think that's the case. Jim, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Introducing Bryan Adams Radio on iHeartRadio. Hosted by Bryan Adams himself.
Join me for an insider look on a wild ride through 40 years of global rock and roll.
Bryan Adams Radio. Now available on the free iHeartRadio app. Or ask your smart speaker to play Bryan Adams Radio on iHeartRadio.
Who's ready to rock?
Kids wanna rock.